You're listening to the Zhen podcast, a show focused on mental, physical, and relationship health. Each episode features conversations with different guests who share real-life experiences that could be from their own journeys to the work they've done with their clients. We explore what actually helps people move forward, whether that comes from science, spirituality, or day-to-day simple habits that could make meaningful differences. The goal of the podcast is to provide clarity and tools you can apply in your own life. Welcome to the podcast. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we have the amazing Randi Benator. Did I say it correctly?
You did. Thank you.
Oh my God. Wow, that's definitely props to me because I got a little nervous right before I was about to pronounce it. So she is here based in California. She is a career and life transition coach, and she's also the author of Awaken to Your Calling, a guide to discovering your career path and life direction. Did I say that correctly as well?
Yes,
I
beautiful.
love it. Just killing it. So welcome to the show, Randi. I will let you introduce yourself and share with the audience what you do and how did you get into this industry.
Okay, great. So nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Zhen. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. So I've been in private practice about 25 years, maybe a little more, and I work with people individually who are in career transition, life transition, trying to figure out their career direction, all sorts of different kind of things related to that. And I also, pre-pandemic, I taught a lot of workshops. I used to teach through San Francisco State College of Extended Learning. I taught workshops around discovering your career path, discovering your life purpose, finding your direction. And then I also taught through other places, weekend workshops or weekly workshops. So it was fun to work with small groups too, especially because they would all really relate to each other. Like, oh, I'm not the only one in this situation, right? There's other people going through a lot of the same struggles and challenges and questions. And then I also, then I started writing my book on the side, and that came out in into 2021. So it was right in the pandemic. So that made it kind of challenging because you couldn't do many things in terms of talks and stuff. But anyway, it's been really nice to have it out in the world and hear from people who've read it and had an impact and positive impact. So that's what I've been doing. And I love my work. And I really believe, everyone needs to find their right path and their calling. And the more we're on that, the happier we are and the more fulfilled we are too.
I definitely agree with that. I would say all the career days I went to when I was in high school definitely did not to locate the best career for me, at least not in my 20s. And there are just not enough job fairs that I can go to, be able to find something that I was looking for internally. I think that a lot of people view career as a external thing that they do, but it depends on the person. But to me, I just genuinely cannot do a single thing that I don't want to do. So the moment that in any jobs that I just genuinely don't have any interest, I just stop. I either play or I just become miserable. So what you do is very, very important for people who do want to find their calling and fulfillment in life. So
yeah, and I just want to say I love what you said. It's a very common thing where people end up in careers or jobs where they're not aligned with their interests or their skills or their talents or their natural inclinations, and then they are unhappy or they're frustrated. It's good to notice that for yourself so that you make choices so that you get more aligned with who you are and what you're interested in and what you're good at and express yourself in your work. Because so many people, there's probably the majority of people don't really like what they're doing and it's not the best fit. And then once you get a really good fit, it makes all the difference, I think. For me, it did when I found my right work.
I also feel at this moment I found the right work for myself as well. And I would say I didn't work for almost 3 years because I didn't know where I was going. So I just stopped going. And I didn't want to make a quick decision and figured out how to make a living while sacrificing my soul. So I thought, maybe it's time to take a break. And I did that because I also felt like I just didn't know enough about different careers. And I
Mhm.
thought, how fun would it be that somebody were to invent a program that you can shuttle people for, a month or 3 months to really try to understand what each job really looks like and how is it a personality fit. Like I initially saw the TV show Selling Sunset and I was like, that sounds fun. I'm an
Mm.
extrovert. I can go into real estate, quit my job, went into real estate, realize I'm not as extroverted as I thought I was. At least not with strangers. With strangers,
Mm.
granted it was COVID, even now I'm like, please, 6 feet apart, right? Do not talk to me. I do get nervous, so I would say I feel like people don't have enough tools or platforms for them to fully explore what they are in. So with that, I'm going to propose the first question, which is, do you believe everybody has a calling? Can you tell us more about that?
I actually very much do believe everyone has a calling. My personal philosophy is that each person is unique and each person has something unique to offer the world. You have your unique contribution. And anyone listening, I hope you really take that in that you have a unique contribution that no one else on the planet has the exact same one as you do. And it could be through your work. It doesn't have to be through your work. It could be through your life. It could be through your friendships. It could be through your family. So it doesn't have to be, it could be a creative thing you do on the side of your job. It could be through your work, though. I feel like my calling is through my work, but it doesn't have to be. But I really believe that each of us is a completely unique mix of interest and talents and skills and gifts. And what you have to offer is not what I have to offer. You have things you could do much better than I could, and I have things that would naturally come better to me and easier to me. So I really, when I'm working with people, I love to help them get aligned with who they are and what are the unique pieces about them. So it's not about what's out there and how do I fit in, but it's more like who is this person? And I kind of do different ways to draw out their talents and skills and preferences and all of that. I do a lot of exploration and then I put it all together. And then we come up with things that match that. Like what careers match who they are, not how do you squeeze yourself into something that isn't a fit for you. And most people have never had a chance to do that. Like so many people come in to see me. A lot of times they're like, oh, I wish I had started seeing you 10 years ago. I wish I had known about this because I've been 10 years in something that hasn't been a fit, but I didn't know what else to do. Right. So I do believe we all do. And again, I don't feel it has to be through your work. And also, I don't think it has to be one specific thing. It could take different expressions. And it may take different expressions throughout your life. For instance, with you, this podcast may be one new expression that is a whole new way that you're expressing your calling. So and my book is one way I am, and my work with clients is, and my teaching and my speaking, they're all different ways I'm expressing my calling. And that may evolve more down the road. Maybe 10 years from now, there's a new book with new things I need to say. So I think for all of us, don't limit yourself to thinking, oh, I have to find this one thing. And if I don't find that, I'm lost. It's like you need to find the core pieces, but it can take many forms. It can be expressed in many ways. So,
That just reminded me of one conversation I had with a friend. And in my 20s, I definitely viewed my career as my identity. So, not having a job definitely is the death of my previous identity. But that was just the beginning of it. And I remember I had a friend who was like, well, why don't you do a job that you don't really like that much, but then you get to live your life on the weekends? You can do things you like on the weekends. And I was like, I don't even know what you just said. Like, I have no clue what you mean, and I don't even want to know. Please just stay away from me. Mine had a point there, right? I think there's just different channels, and this is not encouraging people to not find a fulfilling career. I'm just saying there's more life than your job, and
yes.
there's more, hours in the day that you may not be at work that we can utilize to find fulfillment in life. It took me so many years to from where I was to where I am today. And it does take time for self-awareness. So for the people who say they wish they met you 10 years ago, sometimes, and this is speaking on my own behalf and my own experience, I feel like sometimes maybe I'm just not suffered enough. And so I wasn't ready to make a change. And eventually I was just like, I cannot do this one more day. And that was the switch where I had to go. I can no longer be here. So it takes time. And what is usually the first question or first three questions you ask when someone walks through the door to help them get into the mindset of figuring out who they are and find a career fits them?
Well, it's kind of hard to answer because it's unique in different sessions. Like I work very organically, so depending on them,
Hmm.
um, I might ask different questions for different people. But I would always ask what it is they want to get out of the work, kind of where they're at now, and what's missing, or what is it? Where's their pain point? Like what is it they're wanting? And then I'll do exploration from different angles to get to their interest and talents. And I have a lot of different ways that I do that. And a lot of people, when they come in, are feeling stuck. I mean, I hear it all the time. I'm feeling really stuck or lost. And so the work is really about helping them gain clarity and focus and get clarity. And the book I wrote for people who don't work with me one on one, who still need that help, maybe the book could help them get it. It's not going to be the same as individual sessions, obviously, because I can't give the same kind of feedback and input that I would. But I still put a lot of exploratory questions in there and stuff where they can get more clarity. So that's kind of my goal, is to help people get the clarity. But the questions can vary, but I'm definitely drawing out from them who they are in different ways.
That
So
makes perfect
that
sense. I'm sure you've been in this industry, you said, for 25 years, and I'm sure you work with just hundreds, thousands of people. Why do you think there's so many people are in unfulfilling work or confused about their direction?
it's a great question. I think there's quite a few things. I think one is people often fall into a career or a job. And then once they've done that for a while, that's what they have experience in. So they keep going to jobs that are the same, even though it was never the right fit from the beginning. So they just fell into it. And it's very common. And then another thing I see a lot of is people who just don't know how to figure it out. Like they don't know, like they've been trying on their own for a long time, but they haven't been able to get clarity or figure out what they want to do. And then another thing I see a lot of is people who other people's input influenced what they chose. Like their father thought they should be blah, blah, blah. And so they studied that in school and then they got a job in that. And it never was a fit for who they are. It just, or their interest or their talents. It's just what someone else thought would be a good direction. And you find a lot of that. People are like, well, if you don't know what to do, go to business school, or go to law school. And then suddenly they're like not even liking being a lawyer or working in the business world. And it was never what they were meant to do. It could be something else, of course. Too. So, and I share a story about this in my book. My father was a CPA accountant, and he often wanted me to work in his office, like on my summers, which I didn't. And he pushed back a lot. He kept being like, it's so practical and it'll give you good skills and you'll always be able to get a job. But I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a math person. I'm a people person. I'm a relationship person. I love helping people. I mean, that's part of my calling, is I like to help people. I like to support people. I like to inspire people. So that's not in accounting. Not that there's anything wrong with accounting. For some people, it's a great fit. And my brother is a CPA accountant. It's a great fit for him, but it never was for me. And so luckily I resisted his push and I did my own thing. And then I studied psychology, which is not what my parents would have liked me to study. I got my undergrad in psych and then a master's in counseling. And then I did coaching certificates later and stuff too. That's not what my parents would have chosen for me. So I kind of was stubborn and did what I felt was my own path. And even with that, it took me a while to figure out the right thing within it. Like I did study psychology and counseling, but I didn't really want to be a therapist, but I wanted to work with people. So it took me a while to find my right calling. I mean, it took me quite a few years. And I remember having a job like you mentioned, where Sunday nights I would dread Mondays. Every Sunday night I'd be dreading going to work. And I thought, you can't stay here. You can't be feeling this way. That's not healthy. And I stayed there 6 months. So I'd given my notice after like 4 and they forced me to stay like 2 more months. But I see people who feel that way and they've been there for years and years. So a lot of those people fell into it or someone else, suggested it and they went with other people's opinions, or they just couldn't figure out what else they should do. I mean, a lot of people come to see me are like, I don't know what else to do. I'm miserable. Or even if they're not miserable, it's just not a good fit, but they don't know what else. So that's my help, is to help them figure that out. Because there are plenty of other options that could fit who you are and your personality and your interest and your skills. You just need to open that up.
I think the current society also reward people in a way for doing similar jobs over and over again, because whenever a position trying to hire somebody, then they need prior experiences. And here in the Bay
Right.
Area, entry level is 8 years. That's crazy for a
Yeah.
entry level, 8 years. When I first got to San Francisco back in 2017, I never worked a day in my life and I was trying to get a job. I was jobless for like 6 months because no one was willing to give me a chance on something new. And they don't even look at your resume if you don't have, say, at least like 3 years of experiences. So I
It's
definitely
tough.
can see how that's very, very difficult. So for
Hmm.
the people who have this fear of not able to get a job, or they're, already pretty high up in the current career and they don't want to give up that level of pride or that level of seniority. How do you pronounce that? Seniority?
Seniority. Seniority.
Struggle here.
That's okay.
What would you say to people to help them, facilitate their decision to do something that might bring them happiness in the long run, but not right now? Or there's just more fear clouding their judgments right now?
It's hard because you're right. It's easier to get a job if you have experience in it. And that's why people often stay in a field that's not right for them, because they have experience in it and they can keep working in it and get other jobs in it. So it's much easier to make a career change on something that's more similar than to do something totally different. But people do it and you can do it. When I teach workshops, I often talk about some people in this room are on the right tree, they just need a new branch. And other people need a whole new tree. And, I never know starting the workshop who's what, but people always end up relating to that as the workshop goes on. Like, oh yeah, I'm on the right tree, but I need a new branch of the tree. Or, oh no, I need a completely new tree. So, it's harder when you have a completely new tree, but people do it. I've worked with a lot of people who've made total career changes, many, many people. Sometimes you have to go back and get some training or education or even volunteer so you get some experience. I've had numerous clients making a change where I had them volunteer in the new thing they were interested in, and they ended up getting offered jobs over time in that at the place where they were volunteering. This happens a lot because you're inside the organization, um, and people know you and have a relationship with you. Now, not everything can you do volunteer work for, but for a lot of things, I mean, I'm thinking of one person popping up in my mind where she was in something completely different. But what kept coming up in our work was her love of animals, love of animals, love of animals. And I was like, and also event planning kind of emerged, and she'd never done that either. And I said, why don't you check with the local humane society? They had volunteers. I knew they did because I used to volunteer there. I said, see if you could talk to the people who are in the event planning department and if they'd let you volunteer in that department, because that wasn't really one of their volunteer things. And she did volunteer there. And then eventually she got a job in the event planning department because now they knew her. They had a relationship with her. Um, and I've seen it with many other people too. It is harder when you're starting from scratch. I mean, it is. It's just the truth of it. But I always think it's still possible. I've seen it happen over and over. And also if you persevere and you're totally committed and you're like, no matter what, I'm going to do this, you'll find a way. I remember reading an article recently. I'm a big Warriors fan. I don't know if you are living here in the Bay Area, but I'm a big Warriors fan. You are? Yeah.
I don't go to the games a lot, but I do. Well, I'm from the Bay Area. Definitely am.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love my Warriors. So anyway, I remember reading an article about someone who was very high up in the organization, like way high up. And he had started like in a very, very basic entry level job. I think, in fact, he was like an intern or a volunteer. And then he became like a video assistant. And then he was some kind of like very basic. And then he kind of worked his way up and worked his way up. And it kept being, I wish I had the list of all the things he did, but he like was very entry level, and then now he's like way up at the top. Like he was, one of the top people in the business side of the Warriors. So it was like if you were saying, no matter what, I want to work in something in sports and basketball, and I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to, meet with people who do it. I'm going to see if someone will let me help them in some way for free. I'm going to, and you're committed. Eventually, you can get where you want to go. For most of us, I mean, I'm not going to be a professional ballet dancer at this point, or something, or but with most things, if you're really persevere, you can get into something and not give up too quickly. I think most people give up too quickly. And one other thing I wanted to respond to what you mentioned was about if you're more senior, if you have seniority, that one is sometimes people really get into the golden handcuffs thing, which is like, I'm making really good money. How can I let that go? And, they have a choice. You can continue in the same job and make the money. And then on your side of your job, do something else that you really want to do, that you get fulfillment from, that you get to contribute in some way, or maybe it's a creative expression or whatever it is for that person. And then that's enough. Like you have the job that makes you the really good money because you need it. And then you've got 3 kids and you need to put them through college or whatever. And then on the side, you do something you really want to do. And sometimes maybe the side thing becomes bigger and then that's all you do, right? But the other thing is, some people I've worked with were willing to loosen up the golden handcuffs a little bit and make a change. I'm thinking in a moment of a woman I worked with who was a lawyer, and she was having so much stress in her law job, and she was having health issues, and she barely ever saw her husband. And then we worked together and we helped her make a change. And she didn't make as much money. She still was fulfilled in her work, much less stress, and her health issues went away. And she saw her husband a lot more and he was happier. And she told me, I mean, I ran into her like a year later or something. She goes, I cannot tell you how much happier I am, more fulfilled, less stressed. My health issues have gone away. I mean, she was like night and day. It changed her life for the better. But she had to be willing to give up a little income. And, some people are, some aren't. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but that's a choice you make.
I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. And I personally can definitely relate to that. I
Yeah.
don't want to be stressed out anymore. There's just not enough Botox I can get to make sure stress is not aging me faster than I want it to be. And I don't think that I started thinking about that until when I was in my late 20s. My mom's like, you need to like get Botox right now. And I was like, Mom, you're the reason why I have self-esteem issues. Okay. But I definitely feel during that
You do
time,
not look like you need Botox at
I haven't
all.
just yet, but I've
No,
been
you don't
getting
need it.
recommendations from
You
people.
look great. You look great.
Thank
Don't
you.
do it.
It's
You don't need it.
definitely not the lighting, it's my real skin. I would say I would say, late 20s was what changed my mindset about who do I want to be and how do I want to live my life. And it seems that this lady is more career established when she starts to think about changing the directions of her life. So,
Yes.
around what time do you observe people start thinking about it and come to you about their career directions and life directions?
So it's interesting. I have quite a few different ages that come to me for different things. So I tend to see a lot of 20 somethings or maybe early 30s who are still trying to figure it out. Like they haven't figured out what they really want to do. They haven't figured out their path or their career direction. And so they're coming in. In fact, sometimes it's their parents sending them to me, like, especially if they're like 21 or 22 or 23. Like their parents are like, help my kid. They have no idea what to do and they don't know what to study, or they studied something and now they're not doing anything. So, and I really love working with that age because they really need the help. Like they're, I mean, I shouldn't say this as a generalization, but a lot of them are really clueless about what to do. And so I feel like I can make a big impact with those people at a crucial age, where they're just kind of getting started on their direction. And then I also work a lot with midlife transition. So people who've been at careers for a long time or for many years, and they're just ready for a change. They're like, okay, I've been doing this. I'm not so happy. I've been wanting to change. I don't know what. And midlife transition, I mean, a lot of people reach a point in their life where they just know that it's time for something different and new. Some of them, it's pretty new that they're feeling that way, and some of them, they've been feeling that way a really long time. So those are people who are, midlife change kind of stuff. And then I also work sometimes with people who are retiring and they want a meaningful next chapter. Like I worked with a woman who, had helped support her husband's business for years and years and years and years. And now they were retired. And she's like, now what do I do? And she's like, I don't want to just sit around at home, which is what I'm doing, and going out for a walk occasionally. She's like, I want to do something purposeful with the rest of my life. I may have many, many years left. And she said, I've always done stuff that was for his business. It wasn't really what I was enjoyed or was good at. Like, I'd love to find something that was a fit for her. Like she wants to find something that she would enjoy, and she really never had that. So we did some work together over a number of months, and we found stuff for her that she was all excited about and started taking steps on and doing. So I've definitely had people who are about to retire or have just retired, and they're like, okay, now I have all this time. I don't have to be at a job. Maybe they liked, maybe they didn't. Maybe they just had a job to make income, and we all need that sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. And now it's like, okay, now's my time. What do I want to do with my time? And also, how can I have the rest of my life still be meaningful? And how can I contribute something? So, I mean, I'm a real believer, and we all ideally contribute something. And the more we do that, the more fulfilled we are, the more satisfied we are if we're contributing to others. We want to feel like our life has meaning and purpose. I mean, I know I do, and I'm sure you do, and most people hopefully listening to this do. So, and again, like I said earlier, it's different for each person what that would be. So it's like finding your unique expression and your unique contribution. And the more each person on the planet does that, think how better the planet is. Think how many people right now are working in jobs that are not a fit for them. And what if all those people figured out what they really want to do and where their biggest contribution could be and did that? It's better for all of us. It's better for the planet. It's better for the culture and the
If
community.
you
It's better for the community.
if you have to take a guess, a
Yeah.
wild one, what
Okay.
percentage of population do you think are at a job that they're not very happy about?
I would say definitely more than half.
Okay,
There's been research. I don't remember the exact. I think it was like 70 something percent.
that's high. That's
But I don't
like
I don't know if that's accurate. I really don't know if
okay,
that, but I definitely would say more than half.
okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think get in the way of people, following their calling? We talked about, you know, pressure from parents. We
Right.
talked about with no awareness or insight into other career, they just settle down on one and stay with that. Are there any other reasons why people would not follow their heart?
Well, I think the money thing for sure is like I need to make a certain amount of income, and this kind of job will give me more income than what I'd really want to do. And I totally get that. And especially sometimes, even short term, you might need to do that. Like I know people, it's like, well, I'm putting my kids through college. Right now, I just need to make the money and not think as much about what I'd really want to do because it may not make me as much money. Although sometimes it could make you more money ultimately, but it may not begin there. And there's plenty of people who followed their calling and it was a huge risk and ended up being very successful and making more money than they would have.
I know a person who quit his job and go into starting his own business, and he definitely trusted his calling. But then after, I think 5 months of things are not taking in shape, he went back to a job because he
Mm.
had a family to take care of.
Hmm.
I think being patient definitely is a virtual, but you also have real life challenges
Yes.
to face and responsibilities that you have to take on. So in this case, for the person who did leave but then went back to a corporate job, if you were to be guiding this person, how would you guide him differently?
That's a great question. And it's totally understandable that sometimes you might need to go back and have regular income coming in. I would encourage him to do what he was wanting to do on the side and see what happens with it. Like when I started my business from the very beginning, I was doing it on the side of a job. And then as it grew, I cut back at the job I was at. And then as I grew more, I left the job. Yeah. So it was a process. If I had tried to make my income, my full income from my practice in the beginning, I would have been struggling like you wouldn't believe because there was no way I was making enough to live on. I mean, now for sure I am, but I wasn't in the beginning stages. So I did it on the side. So it could be something, if someone really is passionate about something, to do it on the side as much as they can, and then see if it can grow and build enough so that eventually they can switch over to that, because that can happen, you know. I mean, even with yourself, I mean, I don't know what your goals are long term, but if your podcast grows and you do all sorts of other things related to it and it grows bigger and bigger, it may be that that's where you end up spending more and more of your time, and more of your income or whatever. So I think it's important to follow it, even if it ends up not being your full time job, especially
Right.
if it's a passion. And maybe it eventually becomes, like with me, it did eventually.
Right. And so when people are making changes, we often use the phrase taking a leap. But in your book, you talk about sometimes it's building a bridge. I know that
Yes.
you mentioned sometimes we do things, side projects, and maybe that is a version of building a bridge. Are there any other version of building a bridge?
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book that's called something like that, something like taking a leap versus building a bridge or something like that. And what I talk about is that for some people, taking the leap is the right path. Maybe they're in a financial situation where they don't need to work for a while, or there's a way they can do it where they can just leave what they're doing and just take a leap to the next thing. And then but some people limit themselves thinking that's the only way to make a change. So I've seen people like that. Well, you got to take a leap, but how would I manage? So I just don't do it, period. And then that's it. It's like, well, that's one way to do it. And sometimes it's appropriate. And sometimes the building a bridge is the appropriate way to do it. So I think people need to look at their situation to see which is right for them. So, like for me, the building the bridge was the right thing, which is I couldn't take a leap and suddenly, okay, I'm dropping my job. I'm going to full time start a practice. I'm going to write a book. It's like, yeah, but how am I making my income those first few years? Right.
Right.
So, in my situation and many others, I worked while I started doing something on the side, and I grew it and grew it and then and then I could make the leap. But it was more of a bridge building to get to that leap. So, I would encourage people who are listening to know that you don't have to do it as a leap if that's not reasonable for your situation. You can do it as a bridge and then slowly bridge it over to the new thing. And for some people, the leap is the right thing, but you have to kind of look at that within your own life situation. And some people are married and their partner can financially help until they get going with their thing or with their new direction or new career. And great. If you're in that situation, wonderful. But a lot of us aren't. And so we need to do the bridge. And also, you never know if the new thing is going to take off to be what you want, whether it's your own business or whether it's a new career job. It may take a little time to find that out. And it may be that it never gets quite to that point, and then you have to adjust as it goes.
The listeners want to work with you. How can they best contact you and find you?
So I have, well, if they Google me, a lot comes up, my book and website and Google business page and interviews and radio things and stuff like that. And it's Randi Benator, Benator. Or I have a website, Career and Life Transitions with an S at the end. So it's career and then and is spelled out, careerandlifetransitions.com. And then the book, they can look on Amazon. There's a whole bunch of reviews and stuff. It's called Awaken to Your Calling, a guide to discovering your career path and life direction. So you can look at the book or my website. And on my website, there's ways they can reach me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Randy, for your knowledge and joining us today. We can't wait to have you back on the show. And
Thank
thank you
you.
again.
Total
Bye.
pleasure. Thank you for having me, Zen. It was wonderful. Wonderful speaking with you.
You as well. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Zen Podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, the best way to support the show is to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It also means a lot if you take a moment to leave a rating or review that help more people to discover the podcast, and please do make sure to leave your comments and your thoughts. And if you know somebody who would benefit from what you heard today, please share the episode with them. This is your host, Zhen, and I will see you next time.